My name is Alistair Lee, and in this video, I'm going to walk through the process of creating an event in Adobe Connect. When you create an event in Adobe Connect, you're creating a microsite that you can use to promote your event, as well as to register unknown users for your event. The event will also take care of all of the emails associated with your event, things like invitations for your event, reminders before your event, updates if something changes, even follow-ups after your event has occurred. Events also provide additional analytics that go well beyond what you get in a standard meeting report. So when we create an event in Adobe Connect, it really needs to point to something. And for any live session, like a webinar, that would be a room. It could be a meeting room if it was a smaller session, a seminar room if it was a large session, or even a virtual classroom if it was a training session. But an event can point to anything on the Adobe Connect server, including content. So if you wanted people to register before they viewed a recording, or could read a PDF document, or view an MP4 video, you could also set up an event that pointed to content on the Adobe Connect server. In this video, we'll be taking a look at creating an event that points to a room. Before jumping into the creation process, let's take a look at the end result. What I've got up here is the event catalog. This shows me all of my upcoming events. There's a carousel at the top of the page, which can scroll through my featured events, and then below that I can see a list of any upcoming events. I can filter based on tags that are associated with the event. I've also got two different views. If I want to see a calendar view, I can switch to that calendar view or move back to my list view. When I click on event details, I can see the microsite that gets generated automatically. There are three pages: an event information page, a speaker information page, which gives me a more detailed biography of my speaker and a larger image, and an event registration page, which includes my registration form. And this can include lots of different custom questions that we can use for lead generation or whatever you'd like. So there are some things that we'll need before we get started. If we are pointing our event to a room, we'll need to ensure that that room has already been created, whether it's a meeting room or a seminar room or a virtual classroom. And secondly, there's some imagery that we'll need. When we're setting up the event, you'll see some recommended sizes for that imagery, but essentially you'll need a small event logo, a larger event banner image, and a small banner image that we haven't seen yet, but this will be used in the emails that get sent out. So let's take a look at creating this. I'm going to log into Adobe Connect here, and I'll navigate over to Event Management. I'm in the My Events section, and I can create the event right here. If I want other event managers on this account to be able to access my event easily, I might want to create it in the Shared Events section. But for now, I'm just going to use the My Events folder to create a new event. The first thing that we'll do is select a template. Now, there are two templates that come out of the box in Adobe Connect. There's the shared default template. That's essentially exactly what we were just looking at with the three pages: the event information, the speaker information, and the registration. There's a second template that's also available called Shared Default Template Simple, and this is very similar to what we looked at, but it does not include the speaker information. So if you don't have a speaker image, if you're not sure who the speaker is going to be, or you simply don't want to include speaker image in your promotion, you can use the default template Simple. I'm going to use the default template though in this case, and as you can see, you can also create your own custom templates. We'll look at that in a different video, but you can customize these to incorporate your branding, your images. You can decide what you want them to look like. So we'll start by providing some details for this particular event. We'll give it a name and some event information. So we'll just call this some product training. Set up a product training webinar, and I've got two fields here for event information. That's essentially because we've got our detailed event information on our event information page, but on the catalog page that we looked at prior to accessing our event information page, there was a less detailed version of our information. So we've got a short description here and a detailed description. There is an option to register without password as you're setting up the event. This is a nice option to select if you want to reduce the barrier to entry for your event. It means that people won't have to create an account where they have to remember not only their username, which in this case will be their email address, but also a unique password. Here we can give them the option not to have to set up a password at all. It does mean that we can't track people across multiple events, but it does also reduce the barrier to entry, and it's something that I choose to use quite often. We can also enable users to register using their social profiles. They can use their Facebook or Google credentials to register for the event so they're not filling in some of that information. They'll still be asked any of the registration questions that aren't part of their Facebook or Google profile in this case. Next, we select what the event is pointing to. Again, events can point to rooms if they're live sessions, and that's the default here. So we can select a meeting room, a seminar room, or a virtual classroom. Or if we wanted to point to a recording, a PDF document, an MP4 video, we could instead select On Demand and then select something from the Adobe Connect content library. In most cases, you'll probably use this live setting. I'm just going to use a standard meeting room for this event. It's a small training session with less than 100 people. You can set up your events to require attendee approval. This means that when somebody registers, they'll get an email letting them know that their registration is in the queue to be approved, but they won't automatically get approved for that event. An event manager will have to come in and manually approve or reject any of the registered users. This is something that you would rarely turn on. By default, events will show up in the event catalog that we looked at earlier. If you don't want them to show up in the event catalog, you can deselect this visibility to show in catalog. Direct entry is something that helps somebody who's registering just a few minutes before the session. If you're registering 15 minutes or less before a session is going to begin, you don't really want to close the registration page and wait for an email to come in letting you know where to go for the event. Instead, this Allow Direct Entry option will automatically take an attendee into the event, into the room in the case of a live event, or directly to the content in the case of on-demand events, so that they don't have to close their browser, wait for an email, then launch their browser again. After registering, if it's within 15 minutes of the event beginning, they'll automatically be taken to the event itself. Next, we can set up a start time and an end time for our event. Adobe Connect Rooms have the ability to have a date and time associated with them, but it doesn't really matter because they're persistent. Events, on the other hand, the date matters quite a bit because people are registering for a specific date and time. So let's set this up for September, say 22nd, 2022 at 2 p.m. You can see I've got my time zone here as well. And we'll just make sure that the end time is happening after the start time. Here we go. We've set up our event for 1 hour. We can add a registration limit. That might be helpful if you've got a capacity on your virtual room. Remember that about 50% of the people that register for something like a free event won't attend the actual event. So you can set that limit higher than your room capacity in most cases. Next, we're going to choose the imagery for our event. And you'll recall I have some of this imagery already created. There are some recommended sizes here. For our event logo, which shows up on the catalog, we want a small image, 200 by 120. So let me go and select my event logo. We'll select a small banner image. This is what's going to be included in the emails that get sent out. And this is 560 by 230. We can also add alt text for those email images, as well as a large banner image. This will likely be very similar to your small banner image. You probably want consistency between the email imagery that you use and the website imagery that you use. Next, we can add our speaker name and description. Again, here we've got two different fields for the speaker overview. That's because we give a brief overview on the event information page, but you can click to that speaker information page to see a more detailed biography. Finally, we've got a speaker image. Again, choose that file here. This is 300 by 400, ideally. And if we want, we can select any available tags. These are defined by an event administrator, and they have set these tags for the account. And when people are looking at the event catalog, they can filter based on tags. So if any of these match the event that you're setting up, it's a good idea to select them. I'm going to hit next, and we'll go to the next part. Now, as we were creating the event information, we said that this is going to be pointing to a room. So now Adobe Connect is asking me which room we're going to use. If I'd indicated that it was a seminar room, would be selecting a seminar room at this point. If I'd selected on-demand content, would be selecting some content. In this case, though, I'm going to select the appropriate room on my account, and I'll hit next. Now we can create our registration form. Now there are a few default fields that we can include. You'll notice here that email address is mandatory. We can't unselect that. Same thing with name. In this case, because we said we're setting this event up without a password, we cannot add the password field to our registration form. So it doesn't just become optional, it becomes not available when you select that option on the first page of the event wizard. I can add additional default fields if I want, simply by selecting the checkbox beside the field name. And when I hit next, I can also add my own custom questions. Those can be multiple choice questions, where I can select a question and type in all of the different answers. If this is a question that's got a lot of answers, like what country are you from, for example, you can specify that you're going to upload the responses as a comma-separated values. You can simply paste in some responses here separated either by commas or by line returns. I'm going to cancel this here. And you can see we can also add short answer questions where people type in their response, yes or no questions where they select yes or no, a checkbox or text. This is handy if you've got some small print that you need people to agree to, or terms and conditions before registering. And you can shift the questions up and down to determine which questions should be asked in which order. I'm going to hit next, and we'll go to the participant management screen. Here I can see everybody that's registered for my event already. We're just creating it right now, so I'm the only person on this screen. But this also gives me the ability to import a list of users that I might want to add or invite to my event. So I can click on this import export list here to import a comma delimited file of maybe thousands of users that I want to invite to my event. And this will send all of these users the event invitation when we publish our event. At any time during the event registration process, I can also export this file, which will show me who's registered for the event. In many cases, you might not have a list of people that you want to invite. You'll be promoting your event on social media, on your website, maybe even purchasing ads for your event. So you may not have an import list to incorporate into your event, and that's fine. We'll have a URL that we can use to promote our event when it's published. If those users already exist on your account, for example, maybe your co-presenter or facilitator is already on the account, you can also add users or even groups from the account. So if I want to add my colleague Peter, for example, I can select his name, add him to my event manually. I'll click OK, and you'll notice the status of anybody that I import or add manually is invited. In this case, because Peter is a co-presenter, I can actually set his role here either to host or presenter. In fact, I'm going to promote him to host automatically so that he'll come into the event as a host. If I want to add just an ad hoc user, I've got a customer, for example, that I want to include in my event, I also have the add guest option where I can type in random email addresses. In this way, you wouldn't obviously want to import thousands of users, but for one-offs, this is a really easy way just to invite one or two people. You can use commas to separate a bunch of email addresses here as well. I'll cancel that, and we'll click Next. Here we're looking at all of the emails that can be sent out by Adobe Connect. There are a lot of different options. You do not have to send all of these out. The event invitation is going to be sent to obviously everybody that we invite to our event. Now, in the case of the event that we're setting up, this is just going to be Peter and myself because we haven't uploaded a list. So you may not even need the event invitation. You can let users know that approval is pending if they've registered and the event requires event manager approval. This will not be the case for the vast majority of events that you're creating. So we're going to deselect this notify user that approval is pending. There's an email that will go out when users have been approved for the event. For our purposes, this is always going to go out as soon as somebody registers for the event. So this is a very important email. It's going to let them know that they've registered, that registration has been approved, and it's going to include all of the details they need to attend the event on the date and the time of the event. We won't need this denied email because everybody's automatically going to get approved. We will hopefully not have any updates that need to be sent, but this email is handy if you are changing the day and the time of your event or changing some other details about your event and you want to send people an update. We do have an update email that can be sent out. We can also remind people closer to the event. There's an event reminder email that we'll look at in just a second. And then after the event has happened, we can send up follow-up emails, either to absentees, to people who registered but didn't attend, or to participants who registered and did attend. And these can be the same email if you set it up that way. There are also a number of custom triggers that we can set up if we want to send out additional emails that aren't covered by the ones that we've just gone over. A common example is a second reminder. I want to send out one reminder a day before and a second reminder an hour before my event or 2 hours before my event. So let's take a closer look at some of these. I'm going to take a look, for example, at the approved email that gets sent out. And you'll notice there is a drop-down list box for all of these that selects the template that we're going to use to send this email. So in other words, the template that's being selected here defines what the email will look like. And we can customize those templates as well. But if I click on this email to see the details, there's a section at the top that has all of the details, and then below there's a section that shows me what the email will look like. This includes some variables like my event name, my time and date and URL, but this gives me a really good preview of what the email that's going to be sent out will look like. Let's go back up to the top here. We can see, first of all, when the email will be sent out. In this case, we're not defining that because it's going to be sent as soon as somebody registers, as soon as somebody is approved. But for some of the other emails, like the reminder, we can set up when they should be sent out. We can define the reply to address. By default, it will be the event manager, in this case me, because I'm setting up the event. If I want to select something else, I can select a do not reply address. And again, an event administrator can go and define the different email addresses that can be used here. The subject of the email will be the event name and then confirmation. Here's the email template that we're using. And again, we can see what it's going to look like down here. If we want to edit this email template, I can edit the template, or I can select a different template altogether. Adobe Connect can also automatically include an Outlook attachment to the email. So not only will a registrant get an approval email, but they can put it in their calendar. The text here is going to be what gets included in that calendar invite. So when they click that ICS file that's part of that email, this is what they're going to see as part of that calendar attachment. You can also turn on or off request responses. If you're setting your own email here, you may want to turn that off, especially if you're inviting or expecting thousands of people. And again, below, we can see all of the previews of what this will look like. And there are some variables here. There are additional variables that you can use, or runtime fields, as we call them in the product, up here. So things like the event creator name, time, passcodes, if they're appropriate. You can see them all here. And these can all be included in the text below. So that's a quick look at the approval email. The other templates all look very similar. If I customize the reminder here, one of the differences is that we can set the date and time. For many of these, we can specify a specific date and time, or we can create a date and time relative to the time of the event. So for a reminder, I might want to send something out 24 hours before my event. You can set it to minutes, hours, days, weeks, or months. Again, if you want to send out 2 reminders, you could do that with a custom trigger. We've got our reminder going out 24 hours ahead of time. I'm going to add another custom trigger. We're going to set this to event reminder as well. So it'll be very similar to the event reminder they get the day before. When I customize this, though, I'm going to make it 2 hours instead of 24 hours before the event. And I'll just make sure I change this to do not reply. And hit save at the bottom. You may have seen there that we can send out test emails for any of these individual emails, or if I click send test email on this bottom page here, it will send me all of the emails that we're going to send to customers. Very handy to preview them without just the runtime fields. I'm going to hit next. I've also got the ability to track campaigns, and this helps me determine how people found out about my event. If I'm promoting the event on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, or maybe my website, I can use a slightly different URL for each of those different ways that I'm promoting my event. And then when we look at the analytics after the event, we'll see which of the different ways were most successful at bringing people to my event. So campaign tracking is enabled by default. I can set up a custom campaign ID for the emails that are getting sent out, or I can leave that blank here. I'm just going to hit finish. So we have created our event. We haven't yet published our event. When we publish our event, emails will go out to anybody that's been invited. So we don't want to take that step until you've had a chance to preview what the event looks like and make sure that you're happy with it. So if I scroll down here, I can see a couple of different URLs. Here we've got the event landing page, event registration page, and the event speaker information. Now these are the URLs that we'll be using after the event is live, but until it's live, these URLs won't work. There's a preview of each of these, though, just to the left of event landing page, registration page, and speaker information. So if I click on the preview link just to the left of that, I can get a preview of what my site will look like. And so here I'm looking at my event information page for the event that we just set up. I've got a speaker information page. If I click on no more, I can see a larger photo of Conrad here. And I've also got my event registration page with my event form and any of the custom registration fields that I included. We also clicked the option to register with social profiles. So I see that here on my event registration as well. If I go back to event information, I can confirm that this is looking how I want it to look. I can go back to my event information, and when I'm ready, I can hit the publish button. Once I've hit publish, any email lists that I've uploaded will automatically get emails inviting them to my event. And these URLs to the right of each label, event landing page, registration page, and speaker information page, will now be live. So these are live. I can start putting them on the internet. Now, these are the default URLs for each of my 3 pages. If we go back to that campaign IDs page, I've also got the ability to get the URLs for any of the campaigns that are associated with this account. So again, if I want a slightly different URL for Twitter than I'm using for LinkedIn, so I can measure which of those different social media sites were more successful at generating leads or generating registrations, I can select which campaigns I want to include and hit get URLs, and then get custom URLs for each of those campaign IDs. That's a quick look at setting up and creating an event in Adobe Connect. Thanks for your time.